welcome to Great British Ghosts. Today we're in Gloucestershire. Later on I'll be visiting the Ragged Cot Inn, where the robbery of a stagecoach led to some ghostly goings-on. But first of all, I've come here to the ancient Ram Inn, which is known to be one of the most haunted houses in the country. And apparently, it's a pretty unique place.
The Ram Inn in Wootton-under-Edge is believed to date from the 14th century. But the site itself is said to date back to pagan times, when it was used as both a sacred site and burial ground. Over the years, hundreds of visitors, paranormal groups, and its current owner have reported all manner of ghosts, demons, and poltergeists. Local paranormal researcher Chris Howley agreed to show me around.
A lot of stories to tell.
Well, this is the ancient Ram Inn. As you can see, the building in front of us now is basically 14th century. But the land dates back to pagan times. We're actually on a pagan burial ground.
What does that mean?
Well, pagans were very ritualistic, and they would bury their bodies in mass graves. And so it's reported that the energy from these mass graves, the unrest spirits of being heaped all together, will cause chaos in any location. And the Ram Inn is no exception. I mean, the atmosphere inside is demonic. It feels cold, dark, chilling. We've got poltergeists, sex demons, ghosts, spirits, you name it, they're all in. Do you want to come inside?
Not particularly, I'll go to the pub. Go on, I'll follow you. This is quite ramshackle.
It is. I mean, if we go through the main living room and on into the main area of the building.
I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like this before. What, into here? Gee, it's so cold.
It's freezing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's got a really cold feel.
It's got an atmosphere all of its own, this place.
Whoa, look at that. That's enough to scare you, isn't it?
Well, John Humphrey is the current owner of the mansion. He is quite an eclectic collector.
I can see of stuff.
Anything. Now, John moved into the Ram Inn in 1968, and this area here is where he spent his first night. And John, at the time, did not realise the Ram Inn was haunted until the middle of the night. He was disturbed by the sheets being pulled, and what he describes as a forceful hand grabbing hold of him and pulling him out of bed onto the floor. Absolutely terrified him.
John, when you bought this house, did you know it was haunted?
No.
When did you find out?
The first night.
And what happened?
Something got in bed with me.
What do you mean something got in bed with you?
Well, fortunately, 3 films have been made about it. It's something called incubus and succubus, male and female. And I was thrown from one side of the room to the other and pinned up against the wall.
John eventually did research as to what was going on in the Ram Inn, and they discovered that the bed had been put over an ancient grave. They had people in and did the excavation that you can see here, and bones were unearthed from the ground. But what's quite disturbing about the bones that they uncovered, they were the bones of children, and amongst those bones were broken ceremonial daggers. I must admit, I don't like the building. I find it very oppressive, very hard to breathe in certain areas of the building, and I class myself as fairly rational. I try to explain things away. I cannot explain the feeling I get in this building.
This isn't a friendly place, is it?
It's not a friendly place at all. I mean, I've been ghost hunting now for 10 years, and this is one building you will not get me into on my own. The atmosphere is just so dark. I don't know, sometimes you're even gasping for breath where the atmosphere just really pins into you. But this area in particular, we're standing on another site now where there's another famous ghost story of the Ramin, of the Blue Lady. Now, we have a name for her. Unfortunately, it's only her first name. She's called Elizabeth. But it's reported that she's the ghost of a lady murdered by 2 highwaymen, and she still haunts this particular area.
John's daughter, Caroline, grew up in the house and is well acquainted with its paranormal goings-on.
Caroline, why do you think this building is so haunted?
Well, I think it might be something to do with the fact that it's built on, well, below the base of a Celtic worshipping site, where the church is, St Mary's Church, isn't it? Is actually on a Celtic worshipping site, and this building is at the bottom of the hill. So if they used to sacrifice children and toss the bodies down the hill, then this is where they're going to end up. And this used to be a pond, and it's on a geological fault. There's lots of energy in this area. It's on a ley line. All things combined, I think it was destined to be haunted.
Now, my own personal experience in the Ramin was when I was setting up a trigger object for camera when we were doing it overnight. I put the object up on this shelf here. I had a colleague in the living room watching a monitor. As I turned round to go down the stairs, he saw on the monitor the trigger object picked up and thrown at me. It just missed the back of my head. So you've got 2 witnesses. Unfortunately, he hadn't pressed record.
Oh,
if he'd have
no.
pressed record, it would have been absolutely fantastic. We would have had evidence of that. Now, this room that we're stood in particular, is the witch's room. And it's not the sort of room you'd want to sleep in, really. You've got the ghost of a witch and her cat. And there's also the ghost that's reported of a crippled child who looks out of that window and waves at passers-by.
Really?
So,
How
quite
many
spooky.
people have seen that?
Countless people have seen it. Local residents of Wootton walking past the Ramin have seen a child stood at the window waving at them.
When I came back to stay with Dad about 30 years ago with my partner, and the cupboard got thrown down the attic stairs when I was staying here, and that was quite frightening. All my tarot cards went flying around the landing. Yeah, it was quite a spooky experience. But up until then, the ghost left us alone as children.
OK, let's go through to the bishop's room. Now, there's a strange ritual that John has before he allows anybody to enter this room. He will grab this crook and he will bang 3 times. And he will say, "Is anybody there?" And he will do that 3 times. Now,
Do I have to do it?
would you like to try?
OK. Be spooky if someone answers. Is anybody there? Not at the moment.
Now, it's reported by John that we have to do this to gain permission to enter the room. Otherwise, it will stir up the energy of whatever's in the room, and John has reported hearing this noise in the middle of the night. As if somebody is violently shaking that door.
And there's nobody there?
And there's nobody in the room. So John's, ever since, has used this ritual, and it's stopped that effect.
Gee,
Now, this is the bishop's room.
this has got a lot of scary-looking stuff in it.
Yeah, and a lot of
Quite
religious
scary.
overtones on the dressing table as well.
Yeah.
Which is quite scary. The ghost story in this room is of 2 monks that are seen walking along here and through that wall. Now, what's interesting about that wall is years ago, prior to being re-bricked, there was a a hideaway. It was a sliding panel which the monks could walk into and hide away.
The Southern Paranormal Investigation Group have spent many nights at the Ram Inn and say they know just how haunted it really is.
Well, several things have happened to all of us really throughout different rooms. This one time when we were actually in the bar area, we were calling out. We didn't have too much activity to start with, so we were calling out and trying to sort of entice something to speak to us or to touch us. And I had like a touch on the back of my head, and so we asked again. I sort of looked around to see whether I'd caught my head on something, and then yeah, all of a sudden you had a laugh, didn't you?
Yeah, but sort of after that we tried a bit of calling out, and I said, you know, if that was you that touched Dan, said, can you touch me? And at the same time I heard like a laughter, a real sort of deep laugh in my ear.
When you say it was a touch, was it literally just a touch or a push or...?
It was like almost hitting your head on something. It was, yeah, it was almost like a... like it was definitely like a proper touch, like almost pushing my head down.
I personally, was doing an investigation, was sat in the bishop room. There's three of us in there, and the wall violently shuddered very, very hard behind us. There's no explanation for it at all.
It was almost like someone sort of stood there and slammed from the other side, sort of whacked right against it.
Where it's a wattle and daub wall, it was easy to move, but it vibrated very violently and made everyone jump while I was there.
John, you live here on your own now. What's it like to be in this house on your
You're
own?
very conscious you're not alone. I sleep on the settee down below because it's so cold. Why do I hear heavy footsteps going backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards? Why do I hear doors slamming in the building? And why do I hear... If you shut your eyes in a pub, all the babble of voices and laughter, that's what I hear.
Every night?
Not all the time, thankfully, no. But quite often, you almost feel glad to have the company.
Well, Chris, I think I can safely say that I've never seen anything quite like the Ram Inn before. It's extraordinary.
It is an extraordinary building, isn't it?
What do you think will ever happen to this place?
Well, as long as John's here, he'll carry on doing the fantastic job he's done for the past 45 years and keep the building alive. After that, who knows?
No one's going to want to buy one of the most haunted houses in the country, surely.
Well, I think there'd be plenty of ghost hunters, if they had the money, who would love to buy the Ram Inn just to keep the history going.
Don't think I'll be one of them.
Right.
But I'm not sure I'll be back.
OK.
Should we go to that pub?
Yes.